Welcome to the newest episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're talking about a brand new safety joining the AFC South and a specific team in the AFC South. We're going to get into that and more on this episode. Talk a little bit about a couple of the other teams that potentially could use some help at the safety position as well. Of course, like I mentioned, we're going to get into that and more on this episode. But to start off the episode, like I do with every single one, I have the Get Off Your Chest segment. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about where I was this past week. Now, usually I do a couple episodes a week. This past week I did not. I did one episode and I was not back on until now. The reason why? I was in Chicago for the national, NABJ, National Association of Black Journalists. It was a national convention there, and I must say that I definitely learned a lot. Definitely was sewn into, and definitely sold into other people. I just am thankful for the opportunity to be able to go to NABJ, the opportunity to learn and to see some of the brightest stars and some of the new stars that are going to be out there eventually as well. So I got to say thank you to all those that had kind words to say. Also, all those that allowed me to be in their presence as well, and also to those that were out there just to at the right moments at the right times. I greatly appreciate all of you. Appreciate the event. I know one thing that happened, or one event that happened that not very many liked, but other than that, I mean, it was definitely a lot of positivity, a lot of good energy, a lot of togetherness, a lot of just a lot of togetherness and a lot of positivity for the entire time. A lot of joy, a lot of fun, and I definitely got to say I'm looking forward to going to the next one, which will be in Cleveland next year in 2025. Thank you again to NABJ. For those that don't know, National Association of Black Journalists. Thank you again for having me. Thank you again for just having some of the great, wonderful things that you did have there, like the breakout sessions, the job fair, allowing people to get closer to their dreams. And I thank you for that. All right, that is the Get Off Your Chest segment for this episode. But let's get into what I want to talk about that happened in the AFC South. Now, during the offseason, the Tennessee Titans were a team that were mentioned in potentially needing safety help. Now, you had Amani Hooker there, who has been one of the longer tenured Titans. But beside him, you didn't really have anyone that's like, okay, cool, he's the guy. So, basically, there was a lot of talk about who was going to be a safety they were going to bring in. Would it be Justin Simmons? Would it be Jamal Adams? Would it be Quandre Diggs? And for a while, it looked like none of them would be the answer. But eventually, a little bit before camp, Jamal Adams was signed. The safety has definitely got some history with Denard Wilson, who is the defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. So, their history with going back to when Jamal Adams was a starter and a star for the New York Jets at safety. Their history goes back to that because Denard Wilson was his position coach. So, that happened there. And so, naturally, of course, they had known each other and he wanted to bring him here. So he did so, and there we have it. And then, of course, you have, you do have the safeties there, and you do have all those different things to happen. But, there was still some concern with the safety position, along with the Tennessee Titans. And, there were some thoughts as to whether they were going to go into the season with what they had. with Elijah Molden, Amani Hooker, and Jamal Adams, and other safeties on the roster, or was there going to be some more additions? Well, I will say there definitely was another addition because the Titans signed Quandre Diggs. He reunites with his former Seattle teammate Jamal Adams here in Nashville, and joins the team on a 1-year deal that could potentially be up to $5 million. Now, some may be wondering how this happened and why would you bring him in, and all those different things. But as Teron Davenport points out in this tweet I'm about to put up, as Teron Davenport points out, and excellent work by him, Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs are actually very, very close. So I like reading. I'm just going to read the tweet for those that are not watching. Jamal Adams said he and Quandre Diggs talk every day. They know each other. They've known each other since they were kids. Adams said he knows Diggs is working through his process, but he hopes they become teammates once again. So yes, that was kind of put out there before he signed. So it's kind of like the interest has been there in some sense, but just I guess kind of a little bit of coded language from Jamal Adams in terms of the interest from the Titans in Quandre Diggs. So there we go. Now Quandre Diggs is now officially a Titan. He has signed his contract. He is here. So what do you expect from him? You expect a player that can, definitely makes plays on the ball. He's had 3 or more interceptions during his 5-year run in Seattle. He had 3 or more interceptions during that time. He also was a guy that's a solid tackler. Had 90+ tackles two of the previous 4 years. So, guy that's definitely going to make some plays, definitely going to hit some people, and definitely going to make some interceptions. But of course, one thing that does concern me, he is a smaller safety. He's not like 6 foot tall. He's like 5'9", 5'10", maybe. So that is an issue. And then also, of course, just the durability. Of course, you're gonna take as a safety, you're gonna take a lot of hits, and you're gonna give a lot of hits. So just a matter of, can he kind of sustain, and can he kind of keep going from there in regards to that. But all in all, definitely a good addition. Gives you more talented pieces in the room. And so it'll be interesting to see how that lines up. But, of course, we're going to get into how that kind of lines up for the Tennessee Titans. But we're going to do that right after the commercial break. We're touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are 2 of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before at the commercial break, we will be kind of breaking down or seeing how Diggs fits into the roster. Now, according to the depth chart, let me just bring this up real quick. I kind of went and checked this out. Of course, you look on there, Diggs is not ranked just yet. Of course, the official signing hadn't happened yet until recently. So he's not on there. But before he even got signed, you notice that Amani Hooker and Jamal Adams were slated as the starters at safety. And I find that very, very interesting to start off with. Just taking a look, you have Elijah Molden being the backup for Amani Hooker, which you would think, of course, with the way his season ended, he might be still at safety. And then Jamal Adams is a backup, but I don't think they really brought Jamal Adams in here to be a backup to Elijah Molden. Of course, he may have had other options, he may not have, but this is what we have listed so far for the Tennessee Titans. Now, in going over that roster, or that depth when it comes to the secondary, Quandre Diggs is not being brought in here to be a guy that basically doesn't have an impact. They're bringing him in with incentives, more than likely to be a guy to be a starter. Now, here's where the questions come about. And now, I will say it does create more options with him being there. But here's what the questions come about. The questions come about with who sits down. You have Jamal Adams, who they brought in. I don't think they necessarily brought him in to be a sub, but they bring him in, and he's kind of got limited ability when it comes to the pass game. Just the last few years hasn't necessarily been great in the pass coverage, so that's something to look at. Also, another thing to look at is, basically, the injuries with Jamal Adams as well. That's something to look at too. And then plus, you never know. Denard Wilson could put three safeties on the field at the same time and have Hooker, Adams, and Quandre Diggs on the field at the same time. That could happen too. So, there's a lot of different things to figure out. But if you're in your base defense, he's got to figure out whether it's going to be Adams and Hooker, whether it's going to be Hooker and Diggs, where it's going to be Diggs and Adams. Whether Hooker's sitting on the bench. But you got to remember, Hooker did sign an extension with the Tennessee Titans either last year or the year before that. So it isn't like he isn't getting paid too. He is. So, it's just going to be interesting just to see the rotation there. Who knows? Hooker could be out at safety, which that would be even more interesting to see that happen, being that he's one of the longer tenured guys here. However, if you remember last season, they did trade a guy that was one of the longer tenured safeties in the NFL, and his name, Kevin Byard. So it's possible it could happen. But do I think it happens? Nah, a little too early to say that, but do I think it happens? No, I don't think it does. And also one thing that I can say about this secondary now is there's more depth. Just let's take a look at the depth chart again just one more time. You look at Elijah Molden. Elijah Molden is a safety now, but he's a guy that can play the slot or the nickel corner as well. You do have Roger McCreary there at the nickel position. You do have, corners. You're definitely better at that position. You're definitely better and deeper at the safety position as well. The biggest thing that I would say about this defense and this secondary is that they have got markedly better than last year. You didn't have this many options. I know you had Trey Avery and Eric Durr, but now they're more like backups to backups at this point. Just looking again, they're backups, but do I think they'd be the next corner in? If say someone got hurt, that would be Roger McCreary, and then maybe you slide Elijah Molden to the nickelback, perhaps. Or you do have just more different options as opposed to just having limited options. That's God forbid they have any injuries. So, but without the injuries, they definitely have the options to, kind of mix things up in the secondary, which that wasn't there last season. And then along with the aggressive play that Denard Wilson wants to have from his safeties and wants to have from his defense in general, it's going to be interesting just to see how kind of those combinations kind of work out. But, definitely more tools in the toolbox for the Titans defensively. So now they can kind of mix things up and do things like that. And for their secondary, this is critical. For their front, this is critical too, because last year it kind of inconsistently got pressure. No fault of their own. Well, I would say they didn't really get to the quarterback a ton, especially off the edge. I know Harold Landry was kind of getting himself back because of the ACL injury. Arden Key, he definitely is going to get back there, but just completing the job in terms of getting back there as well. This year, they kind of going back with a little bit more of the same rotation up front. This general, it's going to hopefully help the linebacker crew as well with having the veterans and Chidobe Awuzie and Jerry Sneed on both sides, as well as Jamal Adams in the box. Because, for those that don't know, he is more of a box safety than he is for open field safety. However, with Denard Wilson, he did have some time there in New York where he was, was pretty solid in coverage. So it's just going to be interesting to see, just the pairings, the different combinations, the different things that Denard Wilson is going to do. But, of course, as the season unfolds, we will see what happens. All right. Well, definitely enough talk there about the Tennessee Titans and their new addition and what all things they could do. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get into a couple other teams that did not make a move. Those teams, the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. They didn't make a move to their secondary, a big splash move in terms of, adding a potential safety that's out there, Justin Simmons, that's out there. But we will see, how that pans out. But I'm going to dive into that a little bit more after the commercial break on Touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. Like I mentioned before the commercial break, we will be talking now about the other two teams, a couple other teams in the division, not the other two teams, but two other teams in the division. That would be the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. Now, one of these teams made a lot of splashes. That would be the Houston Texans, of course, adding Danielle Hunter to the a couple other pickups as well. But if you look at their team, there is a couple questions about the secondary. One of those questions is the cornerback position. Now, Kamari Lassiter was a guy they drafted in the second round from the University of Georgia, and he has shown up and shown out when it came to camp and things like that. And pretty much, I believe that he could be the guy that starts opposite of Derek Stingley Jr. in Houston. But, of course, they did bring in two former first-round draft picks in C.J. Henderson, who was formerly the first-round draft pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars a few years ago, and Jeff Okudah, who was the first-round draft pick of the Detroit Lions a few years ago. Both of them on their third teams. So, it'll be interesting. I didn't expect either one of them to start. I did expect Kamari Lassiter to start. But it'll just be interesting just to see how that works out. But, the other question I did have is about the safety position. Jalen Petrie didn't necessarily have the best year playing, in D'Amico Ryan's new system. And Jimmy Ward, for all of his veteran leadership, things like that, he cannot stay healthy. So, I know they drafted the young fellow in Kalen Bullock from the University of Southern California, or USC, for those that don't know. But I know they brought him in. But it's just interesting that they did not really kind of take a crack at any of these safeties that are out there. You have a Justin Simmons, you do have a that's still out there. You had the Quandre Diggs that was still out there until recently, but they didn't really make a run at any of these safeties, and seem to be comfortable with who they have. It'll just I just wonder with Houston, and it looks like they're going all in pretty much with all the pieces they've added. I just wonder, you know, is that going to come back to haunt them? Are they going to need more safety help eventually? I wonder if they are. If they are going to, then they're kind of missing their window of opportunity. The only other safety out there right now is Justin Simmons, and he's more than likely more expensive than Quandre Diggs would have been. So just interesting to watch there to see if they do make any other moves, whether it be now, whether it be mid-season or not. If they're able to, hey, that's more power to them. That's more adding to the mission that they set out on this year, which quite obviously is to win the Super Bowl, because they definitely made some star-studded additions. Now switching over to the Colts, a lot of people had them in on Quandre Diggs, and a lot of people had them in on Justin Simmons. Well, it turns out they've got neither of them right now, and it seems like they are happy with what they have. I mean, I believe there was a statement put out there saying that they were, happy with what they had and going to go with what they had in safety. Even though they could use some help there. For those that don't know, didn't watch the Indianapolis Colts all season, basically, I said their theme was to run it back. Pretty much because they signed everyone back that was a free agent or extended people that were going to be free agents soon with new deals or extensions. So with that being said, I mean, they brought back Julian Blackmon at safety on a 1-year deal. Basically, he's betting on himself. They do have Nick Cross back there. They're hoping he can develop more, but you could have used a Quandre Diggs. You definitely could have used him as a veteran safety back there. He definitely upgrades your safety room. He definitely is a guy that can make plays on the football. And, even though he's not necessarily the prototypical safety that Gus Bradley likes in his defenses, he still could have been a guy to make some plays and do some things for them. However, they let him go to a rival in the division. So it is what it is there. And then also Justin Simmons is still out there. And for those that aren't aware, the Colts do have $25 million in cap space available currently. So it isn't like they don't have the cap space to sign a Justin Simmons. It's just a matter of, do they want to sign a Justin Simmons? And at this point, it just does not seem like they want to sign him with who they have. Now, going back to being comfortable with what they have, how they did last season when it came to pass coverage, they were a team that was very, very susceptible to being beat in pass coverage. And a lot of it wasn't on the defensive line. They had multiple players with, I think, 8 sacks or more last year. And this year, they got a pretty good chance of doing the same. Now, I know they're depending on Juju Brents at corner to actually be better this year. However, I will say that the safety position and then the other corner position leaves a little bit to be desired. So with that being said, it's going to be interesting just to see how they are able to maybe get better as a unit this year. However, they could have used a Quandre Diggs. They could have used a Justin Simmons. They can still use Justin Simmons because he has not signed anywhere yet. Yeah, that's an interesting scenario in its own right that he hasn't signed anywhere yet. But no one knows what he's wanting to do in a deal. No one knows what anything is going on when it comes to Justin Simmons. However, we'll see what happens when it comes to the Colts, or if they do add any other pieces there. But for some reason, they're sitting on this money. Maybe it's and they're kind of playing the long game, or maybe they're just doing the different things that they usually do under Chris Ballard, which is not necessarily guys. And I know some Colts fans are upset, or mad, or frustrated, trying to figure out what's going on. But hey, it happens. It is the business, and this is the business that they are putting out there, that they are okay with what they have. All right, just wanted to kind of get into the signing on this show, get into the signing of Quadre Diggs to the Tennessee Titans, kind of break that down a little bit, and then talk about the other teams at the safety position in terms of the Colts and the Texans that really could have used some help. I mean, it's also going to be interesting in Jacksonville to see the new Antonio Johnson and the pairing there in terms of him being the new starter, alongside Cisco at the safety position. That'll be interesting to watch too. But we'll get into that for another episode for another day. In the meantime, of course, you can follow Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms. That would be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it. We are there. You can also tune into through the Mike Patton network as well on YouTube. As far as Touring the AFC South, again, you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, anywhere. And you can also find it on YouTube, the Mike Patton Network. You can find me on social media at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82 on Twitter. The artist formerly known as Twitter, word to Prince. You can also find me on IG and Threads at THA. That's not the _general_MP. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.